Okay. Just, of course, we shall remember the calamities and the sufferings that are happening in Nepal and in Tibet. As Judge Sakhichi has advised us, we supplicate to Brahmakala there has been a lot of cracks and collapses of temples. But Buddha said many times that collapse of the dharma can never happen due to outer force. The collapse of the dharma can happen within our own conflicting and dualistic mind. So I like to think that the discussions that we are having today and tomorrow is just a small gesture and contribution to maintain the inner dharma, the dharmakaya. As I said this morning, we are reading, I'm trying to extract from the sutras, and for that matter, sutras that are not expedient sutras, meaning sutras that really sutras that can be taken literally. There are sutras like a wise and foolish sutras, or there are Jatakamala Sutra, Jera, and even Vinaya Sutras. Those are what we call expedient teachings, where Buddha taught to those who need to hear in those terms, in terms of ethic, morality, discipline, in terms of reincarnation, in terms of karma, consequences, in terms of doing the right thing, not doing the wrong thing. Those beings who needs to hear, beings who can chew. It's a bit like, like when you are a baby, you cannot chew and swallow solid food. So you have to make it chewable. You have to make it interesting, so to speak, and easy to digest. Likewise, Buddha also have taught many teachings that are digestible, if you like, that are interesting, that are easily acceptable by normal way of thinking, such as, not to kill, not to steal, walk gently, wash your feet and one hand properly, not using the harsh words, sit straight, concentrate on air going in and out, all sentient beings are your mother, once upon a time or many times. Just as how you wish to be happy, all the others also wish to be happy, just as how you don't want to be suffering, likewise all others are also not wanting to be in pain, so on and so forth. Like even all compounded things are impermanent, all emotions are pain, all these are teachings that requires explanations. In Tibetan we use the word tangdan, meaning teachings that are meant to be, teachings that are teachings that requires teachings that are designed to be chewable, if you like, digestible. Then there are teachings like Subjectivity Sutra or Vimalakirti Sutra, Manjushri Sutra. These are really the solid food, directly to be taken without salt or sugar. You take straight. This is the tequila in one shot. So, without lemon and salt. No, like goody stuff. Straight to the point. Now, as I said this morning, although many of us may be quite familiar with the Buddha's teaching, so we don't understand it thoroughly, we get some sort of a inspiration, which is good. But to really understand completely is difficult, really difficult. Don't ever kid yourself that you have some understanding of Shunyata. It's difficult. It's difficult with many reasons. One main reason is our habitual and subjective mind just will not allow to understand it. Although as much as we love to think we have an objective mind, we simply don't have that. There is no such thing as objective. Even, and especially we as a human being, probably we have much more dosage of subjective mind. And especially if you have been educated, and if you've been to universities, oh goodness, you will be much more subjective. You will have an opinion, you will be opinionated, you will have your ideas. And of course, you will think, you will never let go thinking that you are objective. So, difficult. This is why, thanks to great commentators like Nagarjuna, Asanga, Vasubandhu, Viveka, Bhava Viveka, I'm sorry, I'm getting rusty with this thing, Shantadeva, great commentators. And without their commentaries, we are lost. And in these commentaries, if you pay some attention and if you put some effort, I believe that some of you have been receiving quite a systematic Madhyamika teachings just recently. In these commentaries, if you go through, you will then learn a system. Basically, it is a system system to think, system to decipher, system to deconstruct in every possible ways. They are helpful. They are really, really helpful. Because really, the Buddhist concept of shunyata, emptiness, is really, it's really difficult to put it all in one go. This is why in the morning I was telling you the setting is important. Setting is so important. If you read, I think, something like a Plato or Aristotle, or like Nietzsche, I think, or Kant, they have a philosophy. But I would not, I'm very, my knowledge of these guys are very small, but setting is not there, I feel. Look, for instance, like Vajracchedika Sutra, setting is also, again, there. I've mentioned this to some of you many times. Washing the begging bowl, the certain dharma robe being folded properly, and then there's a monk's seat, a fabric, so being placed, put together, and then the trees, and then the serene nature, and all these details of washing the begging bowl, put it on properly, and then Buddha sitting straight. All that setting, such a big deal. And then you read 10, 20, 30, 40 pages of shunyata teachings, of course. And somewhere there, Buddha asked Ranjar Subhuti, have I taught? Subhuti said, no, you haven't. After all that, he says, no, you haven't taught. And the Buddha said, exactly. Buddha never taught. This is such an amazing way to put, because shunyata, I'm always coming back to the shunyata. Shunyata should never be understood as a total negation, like some sort of a nihilism. As in this, like this sutra, beautifully demonstrated, and in fact a very elaborated setting here. First of all, remember the parasol? These hundreds of parasols becoming one parasol, and all the universe, under one parasol. All this mind-boggling stuff. It's like watching a movie. I'm sorry, or coming back to the movie. It gives you that like 5 minutes of big hook, some sort of, because of this thing. And then we come back down to more sort of down to earth. But then we have characters like Ananda, Subhuti, Shariputra, the great, it's a bit like, think about intellectuals. Okay, here we have a set of intellectuals, chewing cigar, beret hat, like thick coffee, maybe, I don't know. You understand what I'm talking about? Some sort of a very exclusive coffee shops, who, intellectuals. And then there's a yuppie businessman, who usually the intellectuals would sort of despise, this is business people, what do they know? All they know is about making money and eating food and throwing parties and make more money. That's all they know. They have no idea about the real, sort of the inner world stuff. You understand? So there's that. Similar here. There's a Shariputra, Moggallana, there's a Subhuti. Sort of the usual, you are serene, philosopher, if you like, thinker, renounced. And then there's this businessman. He was a businessman, by the way. Householder. Earrings, nose, I'm sure he has, like, his basically upper arm must be filled with, knowing Indians, the Indians men also wear ornaments. He must be like draped with all sorts of ornaments. With the kajals, I could just see him with like the big, like coal, mascara, not mascara, what do you call it? Right? Coal, kajal. I could just smell him, like he must have taken a bath right before he got sick, probably. He must have applied sesame seed oil first with I don't know, maybe 10, 20 ladies helping him. And then maybe half an hour, he stays there. And then comes with a crushed bean powder to be used as a soap. By the way, these are all found in the sutras, not this, but in other sutras. And that he uses with the saffron water, he then cleans himself. He must have then put saffron or almond oil or something like that on his long hair. I'm sure he has done all of that. So he's this guy. One would never think. You have to think like that. And all this is part of the setting. This is so important that you know. In this, all this deconstructing coming from this man, one would expect the least from this guy. You would think that this man knows how to talk about gold and silver and wheeling and dealing, but not this. But here, he talks about the shunyata in the most vivid way. So, remember we were in the, where was it? Oh yeah, Radhakula. And we were talking about the renunciation. And this is really, again, this is such an important thing. Because when we talk about the renunciation, we always end up talking about the revulsion. And when we talk about the renunciation, we also talk about things like, temptation, right? And there's even, stuff like that. The monks are supposed to think girls are full of pus and blood and stuff like that. We have this, things like this. And nuns also, by the way, to be more politically correct here. Nuns are supposed to think the men are full of, I don't know, disgusting stuff like smegma, I don't know, stuff like that. So, did you translate that? So when you hear this, and then plus, in many other religions, they also talk about a renunciation. Many other religions also have system of renouncing the world. But when you hear these things, then one can't help but develop this notion that, okay, temptation, luxury objects, these are evil incarnate. You know what I mean? They're something bad, really hideous. They are devil incarnate. They are the devil manifestation. They are satanic, manifestations, they are evil, they need to be, got rid of. By the way, Buddhist also talks like that, but this kind of conversation is, remember, I was talking earlier, for those who are those who need chewable food. Soggy food. Soggy, for them, then we talk, yeah. Gold is bad, silver is bad. Boys and girls are full of pus and blood and so on and so forth. We have to talk like that, That's how we try to crush the desire, attachment, temptation, so on and so forth. But here, Vimalakirti is talking about the absolute renunciation. Because he's saying that if you think that something is beautiful, desirable, of course it is a binding, it is going to, clutch you, hold you, hook you. But if you think something is terrible and ugly, that also equally is clinging. Then you are not renouncing. This is why he is making fun of Rahula's so-called benefit of renouncing. He's saying that if you want to really renounce, you have to know that there is nothing to renounce. It's like the billion dollar lottery that you have just won in the dream. And immediately after winning it, you give it to a charity. Is it an act of generosity? Yes, in the dream. But did you really give $1 billion? No, because there was no $1 billion. That level of renunciation is what he's talking about. So, in that level of renunciation, you can't talk about benefit. Because the moment you talk about the benefit, you are talking about the soggy food. Soggy food, sort of chewable stuff. Okay, let's go to the next victim, so to speak. Is Ananda. That's a big one. This is Buddha's cousin. This is the compiler of all our teachings. In fact, this teaching itself was, how should I put it, compiled and put it together by Ananda. Since its beginning with thus have I heard. So Ananda, Buddha asking Ananda, okay, you go. He definitely doesn't want to go. Why? Because once he remembers, when Buddha was sick, he needed to look for some milk for the Buddha, for, food, nutrition for the Buddha. So Ananda was looking for milk. And he was going to some Brahmin family, and outside the door he was waiting for, the householder to come out to pour him the milk. Out of nowhere, Vimalakirti comes. Vimalakirti asks, hey, Ananda, holding an empty begging bowl, what are you doing here? And Ananda said, well, Buddha is not that well. And I was told I need to offer him some milk, so I come here to look for milk. Then Vimalakirti said, don't ever speak like this. Vimalakirti said this to Ananda, don't ever speak like this. Buddha is like a Vajra. How can he get sick? Buddha has crushed all the non-virtue. How can he get sick? You should now quietly leave. And please, don't tell this to anyone. You are creating a big disgrace here. You know, Vimalakirti Sutra, those gods, these gods who has some sort of a clairvoyance, they will know if you think like this. And then these great bodhisattvas, if they hear, would you be able to show your face? Please, don't make us lose our face. Don't create a disgrace. Go back. And those Tirthikas. Tirthikas is like a non-Buddhist sort of, there are other religions that are there, other religious schools. They would hear, if they hear, we are done. They will think, oh God, these guys, these Gautama people, meaning Gautama, I guess is the family name for the Chaturanga. These Gautama people, their leader can't even save himself from things like, like some sickness, meager sickness. How can he manage to save whole beings? So I suggest, this is a quite big description. I would suggest to you, Ananda, live quietly without other people seeing you. But this section is quoted in the Tantra, because this section actually has one of the most descriptive explanations on the concept of Dharmakaya. That's so beautiful. Sakwatham jile number low, because the Buddha is absent of all emotion. Buddha is absent of all time. Buddha's body is absent of all compounded phenomena. So, can't have, sickness. Okay, Ananda, upon hearing this, became so embarrassed. He got so embarrassed and he was about to leave. Yeah, he was beginning to leave with an empty begging bowl. But as he was about to leave, and I think, I'm not going to create this one because there are some other editions, but I think most likely, again, Vimalakirti, as Ananda is about to leave, Vimalakirti somehow made Ananda hear a voice from the sky saying that you should take milk because Tathagata as the prince of Siddhartha, as the son of the Shuddhodana, and Mahamaya, came on this earth to tame the degenerated beings. So the Tathagata will appear at times ill, hungry, thirsty, so that the beings can accumulate merit. So, therefore, without needing to be embarrassed, Ananda can take the milk. Anyway, this has happened. So, Ananda told Buddha, "Sir, this is what has happened, and I dare not go. I dare not go to this person." Next one, so important, especially to British people. This is for British people. Because the next one, Buddha says to Maitreya, "You go." You know, the Maitreya is the future Buddha. Maitreya also refused. He's not going. Why? Because Maitreya said, once upon a time in heaven, when I was teaching to some, gods and goddesses, and he was actually teaching about the teaching on non-returning, which is a very important subject actually. Non-returning, meaning not to be reincarnated, not to roam in the samsara. And as he was teaching this, Vimalakirti turns up in heaven. And then, in the middle of these discourses, Vimalakirti asked Maitreya, "From what I know," he said, "from what I hear, that Buddha, Tathagata, has predicted that after this life, you will then become the Buddha. Is this true?" And this is why I'm saying this particular section is for the British people, because in this discourse between Vimalakirti and the Maitreya comes the most important teaching on reincarnation. Because in symbolically, Maitreya is still as a heavenly, being. And in his next life, he will be reborn as the Lord Maitreya, indicating there is a reincarnation. And Vimalakirti, as usual, systematically will deconstruct the concept of reincarnation. What is being reincarnated? Who is being reincarnated? Is the being that is now and being that is going to be reincarnated the same or what, different? And what do we mean by Buddha prophesies that in his next life he will be the Buddha? What does that mean? And this just, it is amazing. So many, for instance, like, God, this is so important statement. It's just so, not only important, just so encouraging and so just, to me, is one of the most, I don't know, it makes, if you hear it in one way, it is really so touching and sentimental and romantic and at the same time so piercing. Because, okay, Maitreya is saying, do you know that when Shakyamuni Buddha prophesied you that you will become the next Buddha, do you know that that actually means that everybody is going to be a Buddha? That's what was happening. It's not just one particular being. That in itself is a very big statement from Vimalakirti. Because when you, Maitreya, when you reach the absolute liberation, all sentient beings will also reach to the absolute liberation. Because until all sentient beings are liberated, this is so important. We have discussed this in the past, I remember. You know, I mean, those of you who have been marinated with Buddhism for some time, you know this. Don't we do prayers like, may all sentient beings be enlightened? Don't we? We do, don't we? What are we doing? Are we just, so is this some sort of a thing that, oh, you know, like things like world peace? Things like deep down you sort of don't believe it's going to happen, but it's a right thing to do, it's a politically correct thing to do, and nobody's going to dispute that anyway, because, you know, who's going to say, hey, you know, that's unachievable. Do you think it's like that? Absolutely not. World peace, yes, world peace, the whole world as peaceful, is unachievable aspiration. But all sentient beings as an enlightened being, very, very achievable aspiration. This is what he is talking about. This is why Mahayana aspiration to aspire all sentient beings to be enlightened is not just a goodwill, wishful thinking, sort of goody-goody, you know, like warm, aura hug, you know, like, oh, we are all saints. It's not that kind of, you know, touchy-feely, oh, we will all become Buddha. You know that, you know what I'm talking about? You know that when we, even as you speak, you can tell big part of you don't believe in it. It's not like that. Because in the absolute level, all phenomena have always been pure, devoid of fault. Fault, defilements, negative emotions are temporary. It's not even the nature of all the phenomena. So this is why confidence of believing that all can be enlightened is so possible. But this is quite a big one. The discourse with the Maitreya is very big. And then on the other hand, this is what Vimalakirti says. Jamba Teta and Pai Budina Mati Malushi Chanchupan Suya Mine Midoki Jamba Pai Budin Dida Chanchupan to talk about the daughter choosing. This is so important. Especially, in our mind thinking. I mean, how many of us we think like this? Okay, we are going to work hard. We are really, at least we have an aspiration to work hard, practice the dharma, do our practice. For what? For enlightenment. What does that mean? You are deep inside. You are fishing for a long holiday, aren't you? You see what I'm saying? A long break. At last, no need to make appointments. At last, no need to all this hassle and bustle of the samsara. Now, enlightenment, and never needing to do anything. And this, Vimalakirti is quoting Maitreya. Jamba Teta na Rai Gundina Madi Malushi. Don't Vimalakirti is telling Maitreya, don't deceive this godly guy, boys and girls. You are deceiving them. You are making them think, okay, there's going to be an enlightenment where you can at last sort of never-ending holiday. Like forever Hawaii, forever Goa kind of thing. You are making them think that this is how it's going to be enlightenment. This is not true. No bodhisattva wishes to achieve this. No genuine bodhisattva wishes to dwell in this, forever, long, endless, never-ending holiday. So actually, I can, sort of buy that. It's really boring, isn't it? Just imagine, okay. Just imagine 12 years in Hawaii. Just 12 years. How many times you can go to Waikiki? How many times you can go through sunglass shop? You understand what I mean? How many times you can change suntan lotion? After a while, all this will become stale, boring, done that, done this, This is what Vimalakirti tells Maitreya. You should not let them think that the enlightenment is a goal. That enlightenment is the final destination. Yes, that's it. You should not deceive these kids to think that enlightenment is the final destination. Incredible, isn't it? This is Vimalakirti's, total deconstruction, Because Vimalakirti is saying, because liberation is not a liberation of the body, liberation is not a liberation of mind. Because liberation is a liberation from all kinds of mark references. Reference, marks, signs. The enlightenment is when you have no more reference. No more, what I mean? Holiday, the endless holiday, as opposed to working 24 hours, sorting bosses, employers, colleagues. Enlightenment is beyond reference. Enlightenment cannot be defined by subjective mind. Enlightenment cannot be dropped out, it's like fabricated, contrived, make-believe, make up. Enlightenment is not a byproduct of a wish. Enlightenment is beyond all view. So on and so on and so on. I'm skipping. This is a really, really big one. Enlightenment cannot be wished. How can you wish for liberation? It cannot be wished. And I guess I have to sort of skip this. There's too many. Enlightenment. No abandon, no adoption. Enlightenment beyond grasping, beyond fixation. Enlightenment is none other than when you know everything is equal. I'd like to again remind you, as what I said yesterday. Keep in mind, this happened 2,500 years ago in some mango grove, you know. That's quite amazing. We are talking about, this is really, high-class discourse. This is, even today with all the tools and scholarships and libraries and I don't know, research and all of that, we are finding difficulties even to understand this. Really, something to think about. It's just so, what do you call it? Okay, I'm going to skip one bodhisattva. There's so many. And also, I know I should let you, I should give you time to ask me questions, I guess. I feel a little bit stuffy, so maybe 5-10 minutes break, is that okay? Otherwise I'll fall asleep.